Hello everyone, this is from LEGO Universe, and today I'm going to be showing you a tutorial on basically how to use a new feature on Roblox called particle emitters. So originally on Roblox you had your four main particles, I guess, which would be fire, smoke, sparkles, and force field. Now those are nice, but they were very limited. So let's say you had like these type of rocket engine things I have here. So let's say you wanted to have a nice fire coming out the back of the engine. Originally you could just use the classic fire. Nice and stuff. It would get very laggy if you got very close to it, like right here, but let's say you wanted it longer, or you wanted it less textury and more just smoke or whatever, I guess. So now with the new particle system, which is basically just a thing called particle emitters, they're not as user friendly though, but they are a lot better because you can get stuff like this. This is a very nice exhaust flame that I figured out that would be nice for something like this. So basically I'm just going to be using all these types of stuff I have set up to basically explain all the properties of these that are unique to the particle emitter EX. I won't be showing enabled, I won't be showing name, I won't be showing archivable. So before we get to for each property of the particle emitter, let's quickly discuss getting it. So first off, you have to select a base part. What is a base part? It's basically a part. Spawn location, wedge, part, truss part, any part. Even a union operation, or just union. So basically, it's in alphabetical order, so you just look for particle emitter. So the basic properties the base properties you'll see are shown here. Let me close everything so it's a little bit easier. So basically, So there is this longish list of properties that you will have for figuring out everything. These are default. You can always change them to whatever you want, because maybe you don't want a particle that tall or that slow or anything. It's very customizable. There are some limitations put in place, and I will discuss those limitations. So the first property, in order of how they are in the properties, I'll keep this open, is color. So originally for your default one, it would just be all white. So let's say you wanted it to be black, like if you want it to be all black. You can change the color to black, but it's not that easy. You have to change your start and your end color to be the same color for like this. But what if you wanted a different color, like you wanted purple and green? You would choose your start color to be green. Well, you would enter green here. And for purple, you would enter purple here. I just grabbed these from my palette right here. So, my guess is that's not correct, and I just did that for the end. Oops. So that would be your start, and your end would be like this color. And as you can see, they are now kind of the same. There is a gradient color that will be shown here, and you cannot directly edit this. You have to edit the colors inside. So like if you wanted to return this back to white, you'd have to change both of them. Or you could use script, but just changing them like this is a lot easier. Moving on to the next one, which is light emission. Light emission basically is how bright the particles will be. If you wanted like something like this thruster, then you would want a high light emission. It's basically the gamma if you're a gamer and stuff, and change stuff for recording and stuff. But please note, this does not have any relevance to dynamic lighting in terms of lighting up everything else around you. Just a quick little side note. So the next thing is size. Size can be anywhere between 0 and 10. So right here is the default one. This is 0, so since it's 0, nothing will show. This is 10, which is pretty big. It's not really desired for just changing the size on this and calling it done. It's more for other stuff, I guess, with combination of other things. Okay, so the last thing you can do is very interesting. It's only existing with the particle emitters. So basically, if you wanted to change the size, you could just go here and change that. You can change it this way. You can change it to 0.001. You can change it to whatever number you want. Or, instead of getting a number like for Z offset, you get 3 dots. This is your spline curve editor. Basically, if you decide to create a point like here, it'll change its curve so it goes here to here to here. Here is 0, here is 10 for this case. And as you go across, time goes on. It's determined by your lifetime how long that is. So it can change. You can move your start and end points to whatever you want. Move them down. Create more. You can create some pretty interesting effects just by doing a lot of this. And yes, all of this is scriptable in case you're wondering. You can get some nice explosive-ish effects if you do this a lot. It's kind of fun if you just mess it around a lot. You get just this. Okay, moving on to the next property, which is texture. What are your limitations for texture? Just any image that can get approved by Roblox or from your file. So in this one, I'm just going to open all of these up. So in this one, I just uploaded a $sign a while ago for a thing for donation passes and type of stuff. So basically, I just set this up so it's the $sign. The next one I did was a form of Andrew's head from, Andrew Hawk from the live streams that he does with the Jack in the Box or Noble Dragon. So basically, you can have a lot of these heads, I guess. I don't know why you'd want them, but still, you can. And you can set them to here. As long as it gets past moderation, you're good. And the last one you can do is ones from files. It's basically no different from decals, textures, image labels, things like that. To do stuff from file, you do rbx asset, a colon, 2 slashes, whatever folder you are looking to with caps, so textures, and then the image name, or the folder then the image name, because there's some folders in textures. Moving on to the next one, which is transparency. It is similar to size, but, well, it's transparency. So here, the default transparency is 1. You can change it to 0.5 or something like that, and here you can put it to 0. There's no real limitation to what number you can set it to. It's just the fact that your number has between 0 and 1 for any effect to happen. And the thing that makes it very similar to size is the fact that it allows spline curves. Same thing. Hit this, get the 3 dots, and just move it where you feel is right. You can again, if you create a point like there you didn't want, you can hit delete. If you really don't like your curve, you can hit reset. If you want to set up yourself some custom values and stuff like you don't like your placing, you can change this to like 1. Or you can change the timing to 0.2. Or 20% of its life, I guess. And you can just have some real fun. And slight note, if you're using system menu still, this does work. You can still get this the same way, because some people question whether it got this or not. But you can make some really nice effects with this. Get some nice twinkling or whatever it is you want from this. There's just a lot of nice stuff that you can make with this. Next property is Z offset. It is more if you have many particles to one part. Let's say you didn't want all these to be together, and you had like 3 particle emitters. Basically, this is for Z offsetting. For Z indexing. If 2 things have the same Z index, as it's called, they will basically be shown at the same Z plane, I guess, and it'll be rendered both at the same time. So basically, if you have 2 parts that are at the exact same position and will also have the same Z index, you will see a lot of flashing between them or mixing or something. To solve this, you can change the Z offset of it. Okay, so if you wanted to have like your red more back, you could change the Z offset to -1. This would basically lower its prioritization on how it renders. It wouldn't physically move it a stud back, but it would technically render a stud back. If you were to have it like 1/10 of a stud back, it would do the same thing. You just don't really want two particles that have the same number or anything like that. So -1's pretty safe if you're like working with 3 particles that are like these. But let's say you wanted your green to be more upfront. You would change your z offset to a positive number, which would bring it up technically 1 stud. Or whatever amount of stud you want. It could be decibels. Next one is called acceleration. It's a very interesting one, I'll say that. So your default one is 0. Now, the acceleration is a vector 3 property, as it's called, which means it has 3 values, an x, a y, and a z. If you were to move something on, if you were to change it on the x, it would go this way. If you wanted to visualize what's your x, what's your y, and what's your z, you would go to View and Display Axis if you are in ribbon bar. So basically, the red line right here would be your x, so this way, y is up, and z is this way. So this is your x. It is based on the axis of the world, not your part, so this would be your z at the moment. But in the real world, in the world, it's this. So it would basically go towards that direction no matter what orientation it's in. Same with y and same with z. Y is vertical. If you learn about graphing, you should learn this. This is set to a negative number to basically show it goes down, because if you were to set it to a positive number, it would just go faster up, which is not a very good way of showing it for this example, but you can have a positive or negative, and really whatever number you want. And for z, just goes this direction. Next one is your lifetime. So the default one is this. Some particles will reach to the top and some won't. If you want to make it so all the particles reach a certain point and stopped, you could do that. You'd have to set the min and max to whatever time you want. So let's say you wanted so currently it's 5 seconds, which means some will get to here, some will get to here, and the rest will get in between. So let's say you wanted to make it so they're all going to disappear at 2 seconds. These ones would keep going up because they're not new, and these ones would. All of them reach 2 seconds and then they stop. Here, they're all set to 1 second, so they'll all reach 1 second. Here they're set to like 20 seconds, so they'll all reach here. Some won't because of the way that particles are limiting. It's a system built into Roblox so it doesn't lag you terribly. So let's say if you wanted to like 1 and 2. If you had 2 different numbers, it would show as the first number, comma, 2. Or what other number. If you had them both the same number, like 1, it would just show as one number. And if you were to set your minimum higher than your maximum, they would automatically change to where it makes sense. And if you wanted to have a different number like shown here, you could do that. Next one is rate. The rate is the amount of particles that will be released every second. Of course, following the normal limits that are put on the thing. So if you want to put in like 1,000,000 particles, it'll definitely reach the limit and basically cap it at like 1,000 or so. I don't know the number. So the default is 20. You can set it to 1. You can set it to a decimal. You can set it to 200. I'm not 100% sure where 200 is really that practical with sparkles, but still, you can. Next one is rotation. Now, rotation by default is the minimum is 0 and the maximum is 0. If you were to set it to like a constant number like 10 degrees, all new particles would spawn with 10 degrees. This one's set to 45 and they'll all be 45. This is set to between 0 and 360 degrees. If I wanted between 70 degrees and 90 degrees, I can do that. Or if I wanted between 1 degrees and 70 degrees, I can do that. Next one. Rot speed, as it's called, or rotation speed. By default, the minimum is 0 and the maximum is 0. If you wanted to send it to where it's always a constant number like 10 and 10, you can do that. which is like what's shown here. That means it'll turn 10 degrees each second. If you wanted to set it to some number like 0 and 720, you can do that, as shown here, which is where I set to 1080. Next is speed. Speed is two values, a minimum and a maximum, like some of the past ones. So if you wanted like some particles to move super fast and super slow, you can do that as shown here by setting them, zoom out, by setting the maximum to like 1 and the maximum to like 50. And each particle will be some number in between 1 and 50. You can have them 0 actually, and you can have them as much as you want technically. And they can reach super high if you really want them to, of course. Some cases that's not practical. You can use it for like wind and stuff, I guess. The final property that you will see is velocity spread. This is black, just to not get confused with the other ones. By default, it is 0 degrees, which means it'll stay within the boundaries of here. So basically, it will not stray from the here. But if you're to change it to like 30 degrees shown here, it will go up, and it will go up to 30 degrees each way. If you were to set it to like 180 or 360, it would be able to go any way, 180 degrees this way and 180 degrees this way, or 360 degrees all the way, which would allow it to act like the current form of sparkles. That is all the properties in terms of sparkles, but here's a little side note, kind of like surface lights. If you had one particle and you wanted to stretch it across a whole surface of a part, that's doable. You can stretch it as long as you want, but be mindful that it may not be as good as like a small version as it is a big version. So the next part is actually scripting all of this to make it work. So to be able to do actually all of this scripting, you need to first define your particle, which will be ParticleEmitter. That is its class name, and that's how you create it. You don't have to have local ParticleEmitter. If you wanted to, you could have ParticleEmitter equals instance.new, all that. If you wanted it to, you could have local foo equals instant, you get the rest. Part equals that. PE equals that. Anything you want. It doesn't have to be a variable in case you're not used to that in scripting, because some people aren't. To change its color from the script, you have to use a new user data form called color sequence. Color sequence will take one value or it'll take two. If you wanted to make it so it'll be one color, like you just wanted it to be red, you can just put that in, close your parenthesis here, and ignore the rest. But if you wanted it to change from one color to another, you'd have your start color here and your end color here. Now, for those who do not know, in editors and stuff, colors are based off of 255. Here they're based off 1. So you will have to divide everything by 255 if you don't convert to decimal. Next one is light emission. That's just an integer. It's pretty much matches everything else. Now for size is a little bit tricky. You can either A, just have a constant size of whatever number you want, and put that into the new user data called number sequence, or if you wanted to have like a spline curve, as it's called, you will have to do a lot of number sequence key points. Each number sequence key point would be the time it would be in terms of 1, and then value it would be. Technically you can set it to 10 here, but it'll cap at 10 for the actual instance. And you have to put it inside a table, which is just brackets. So you would do your open bracket, your key point here, comma, next key point, comma, next key point, as far as you go until you reach your end at 1. Or you don't really have to put 1, but it's a good idea to, in case it goes off. End bracket, end parenthesis. Next one is texture. Texture is just just a content link. Here I just have it as spoke. You can set it to rbxs at id :/ whatever ID, whatever you want. Next one is size. Size works relatively the same thing as, transparency works the same thing as size. I messed up here. It's supposed to be transparency. So basically, if you were to have transparency and be constant number, you could do number sequence and the number out of 1. You can have it any number, but it'll only act between 0 and 1. Or you can do the whole sequence thing again, like up here. You'd have your open bracket, your key point thing, the time, and its value. Same thing here, and it will keep going until you reach your end. Okay, Z offset. Same thing. You can, if you don't want to change it from 0, don't add it. Particle name. Just name. You can change it if you want, you don't have to. Parent, that's defined later. Archivable, there's no real point to set to false, so I would just leave it and you don't really have to write it. Acceleration. Just a vector 3 value for x, y, and z. You do not need to change it really. It is up to you though. If you wanted to keep it at 0, 0, 0, then you don't have to write this. Enabled equals true. If you don't plan to disable it when you first create it, then you don't need this line. Lifetime. You need to create a thing called a number range here. So number range dot new, open parenthesis, your start number, comma, your end number, and close. Your rate, whatever number you want. If you wanted 20, don't write this, or you don't have to. You can write it if you feel you want to. Rotation, number range dot new, 0, 0, whatever numbers you want for your start and end. Same with rotation speed and speed. If you wanted 0, 0 for these two, then you do not have to change this. Speed. Defaults are 5 and 10. If you want to keep those, then you don't have to write this line. And the last one is velocity spread. This is this is a number. If you wanted 0, then, oops, didn't mean to move that. So if you want to keep it 0, you can. And the last thing I always like to define, you can define it at any point, I guess, is the parent, which will be game.workspace, wherever it is. Where did I put this part? It's a little bit annoying when you have so many parts in Workspace. I don't know where it is. Anyway, it would then go into fire part, wherever I put that. I'm not sure where I put it, though. So I'm just going to quickly create it out of this one. So basically just clone, move, remove everything that's inside, rename it to fire part so it actually knows where to find it. Then you would take this code, either run it in game or run it in your command bar, and poof, you got what you want. And as you can see, it is exactly the same thing as if. So this place will be on copy locked for viewing, and that is basically it for all of this about particle emitters. I hope you find this useful, and bye everyone.